Hello everybody, my name is Robius and welcome to a new episode of Assassin's Creed: The Real History. In this series, I compare events in a selected character's life within one of the Assassin's Creed games to the actual history the individual lived through. As always, beware of major story spoilers. For today's episode, we will be exploring the history of the buccaneer Laurens Prins. To begin this episode, we will be overviewing his pre-game history, which will fill in the gaps prior to his appearance in the game, then his in-game history, which we see in Assassin's Creed 4, and lastly, we will analyze the differences between what happened in the game to the real historical events. Starting with the pre-game history. The man named Laurens Prins, but known to the English as Laurens Prins, was born in the 1630s in the town of Amsterdam within the Netherlands. Nothing is known about his youth, but it is accepted that he arrived in the Caribbean as a sailor in the 1650s, which would have made him approximately 20 years old. Joining the buccaneers John Morris and Robert Seal, Prins purchased from the British Admiral Christopher Mings a Spanish vessel that he had captured. Using this new ship, Prins participated in a few expeditions, including an attempted raid on the town of Mompos in the Rio Magdalena area. Unfortunately, the buccaneers weren't expecting a fort to be defending the passageway and were caught off guard when it began to fire at them. They were instead forced to travel past to Nicaragua. They arrived in August and sailed up the San Juan River, where they captured a Spanish fort following a battle. Using this as a base of operations, Prins and his men canoed to Lake Nicaragua, where they raided the settlement of Granada. The raid was greatly successful for the buccaneers, and certain legends claim that Prins sent the Spanish the decapitated head of a priest in a basket, demanding for a ransom of over 70,000 pesos. A few weeks after this successful raid, Prins and his men were reprimanded by one of their superiors for attacking some Spanish vessels without the consent of their government. Deciding that it was best to not anger the Spanish further, Prins was commanded to meet up with Captain Henry Morgan, who is now known by the rum that bears his name, so that together they could raid Panama. Working together, the pirates successfully raided the Spanish base, and Captain Morgan was so impressed by Prins's performance that the Dutchman was made third in command of his fleet, only below Captain Collier and Morgan himself. In 1671, Prins participated in the vanguard attack against a Spanish fortress, leading 300 buccaneers. His men were the initial attack force and were followed by the main force of 600 men, commanded by Collier and Morgan. Prins's forces then captured a hill overlooking the Spanish position, which forced the defenders to attack or face annihilation. This was followed by an attack led by Morgan, whose volley of fire massacred the Spanish. In the first volley alone, over 100 Spaniards were killed, and overall the Spanish suffered nearly 500 casualties and were forced to retreat. Following all these successful battles, Laurens Prins was made a lieutenant by Sir Thomas Lynch, commander of the HMS Assistance. By 1672, using his portions of profits from the raid he participated in, Laurens Prins became a wealthy and successful landowner in the Liguania Plain in Jamaica. It could be considered that it was around this time where we first met Laurens Prins in Assassin's Creed 4. In 1715, Prins was in Bristol, England, where he was given the duty of using the galley ship Whydah to transport goods and treasures to a slave trading post in Africa. Once arriving in Africa, Prins filled his vessel with 560 African slaves and traveled across the Atlantic where he sold them in Jamaica. Following another period where he took part in the slave trades, in 1717, his ship was commandeered by the pirates Black Sam Bellamy and Palsgrave Williams, who stole his vessel but gave him their smaller ship and some payment as compensation. At this point, it is assumed that Prins returned to England for some time and eventually continued his slaving voyages. Although there are no records of this, it is estimated that he lived richly through the acquisitions of his plantations in Jamaica and his slave trading. He died of unlisted causes in 1717. In summary, there are just a few differences between Prins's actual life and his representation in AC4, although these are more related to the fact that very little is depicted of Prins in the game. First, Assassin's Creed showed him as being a trading partner of the Templars and served as their liaison for finding the sage. Secondly, it is not recorded that he ever participated in a raid on Tulum in the Yucatan, as was shown in the game, when they attacked the assassin's base. Thirdly, his historical death isn't listed, but it's safe to assume that he wasn't killed through the joint efforts of Mary Read and Edward Kenway. However, other than this, the overall representation of Prins could be considered rather accurate, but mainly because a very limited historical background is given for the character in the game. And on that note, we have wrapped up another episode of Assassin's Creed: The Real History. I hope you have all enjoyed the video, and if you did, I highly recommend you try out one of the Assassin's Creed games. Thank you all for watching. Please leave any suggestions for future characters you'd like me to cover in the comments section below. Please rate, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all in a future historical episode.